Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the start of a new series of something experimental that I'm trying. I have kind of tried to dabble in solo role-playing games for the last couple of years, very much on and off, haven't really got on with them, kind of have occasionally sometimes got on with it, and I've had something really good going, but kind of don't stick to it. I really wanted to enjoy Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log, which is the solo version of the Star Trek role-playing game. I don't know barely anything about Star Trek. I'm not really a fan. Apart from watching all of Enterprise about 2 or 3 years ago, I can count on both hands how many episodes of Star Trek I've watched. I'm not into it. So for that reason, I am using that game's oracles and theme and some of the stuff in there, and I'm kind of trying to mesh it with the Ironsworn Starforged system, which is a game I really like, but I do find the theme, at least for me, very hardcore sci-fi and very combat driven. And I'm sure there's people out there that play the game that are going to come back to me and say, no, it doesn't have to be like that. Do it like this, do it like that, fine. But the way I've kind of seen it at the moment and the way I've played, I kind of just get drawn into that kind of thing. Maybe it's my imagination. I certainly don't have the imagination I did when I was a kid. Maybe I struggle to think of things that aren't combat driven. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. I've got, as I say, 2 systems in place really that I'm kind of trying to mesh together. I mean, you'll see from the character sheet I've created myself, it's a little bit Ironsworn Starforged in the stat array, but the stats are Star Trek Adventures with control, daring, fitness, insight, presence, and reason. I will be using the Starforged mechanic with challenge dice, so I roll a d6, add this stat, and then with that d6 roll 2 d10s. I have to beat 1 or 2 of those d10s to either get a hit or a weak hit if I only beat 1 of them, and it's a miss if I don't get any at all. There's loads of videos out there that show you how to play the game. I'm not going to go into that now. You'll see what I do as I progress, and yeah, we'll just try to do what we can really. I will be using the momentum system to some extent. I'm just looking over at my other monitors just in case you want. I want to make sure that you can see what I want you to see. I will be using, and we'll come back to that in a second, that's my crew. I will be using their progress tracks in Ironsworn Starforged, but I've mixed it up a little bit. So in Ironsworn, you choose a rank for your mission or your task, and you have to cross off boxes and put ticks in boxes based on whether you are told to progress based on a move. I've taken that idea and I've developed it a little bit further. Again, we'll see how we get on. This could be a huge mistake, but I'll try. If I choose a task to be troublesome, I will only need to fill 3 boxes. Dangerous 6, formidable 9, extreme 12, and epic 15. Now in Ironsworn it only goes up to 10 total, but you, for example, for epic, instead of filling a whole box, you'll only put in like 1 tick. I'm going to kind of see how I go with that. I might decide to prolong it a bit further, and you know, with epic you still only do 1 tick, in which case, well, we just kind of see how we get on. As I say, I'm making it up a little bit as I go along, but rest assured I'm not going to make this just easy on myself. You know, I'm making it up as I go along, so I'll just make that roll different. I'll just make sure that means something different, so I get a better outcome. That's not the point of this. Without conflict, without danger, there's no real story. Yeah, I'll come back to this. So this is our crew. I've decided to give the crew stats as well, and these I've given them slightly different stats, sort of based on they're more based on the Star Trek Adventures stats, and I've kind of given them stats based on what their role is. So, for example, Chief Engineer, Commander Alex Kelly, their engineering is their highest stat, 3, because they're an engineer. And I've given them other stats as well. I haven't given them the 4. I've given them the more difficult array, if you like. And And all this will be dependent on whether these people are in a position to actually help me with a task. So what I mean by that is, if I'm on, say I'm on an away mission, or I've beamed down to a planet and I haven't brought my chief of medical with me. Say I haven't brought Dr. Wilfred Endar with me, and someone is hurt and I need someone to do some medical. Well, I'm not going to have the chief of medical with me, so I'm going to rely on someone else who's going to have a worse stat. So, I'm not just going to automatically, this person's got the best stats, so I'll use them. If they're not with me on that mission, if they're not in a position to give that advice or do that task, then they're not going to do the task. They're not going to be able to. Gone through that. So let's just take you through the crew then. Yeah, Commander Alex Kelly, sort of chief engineer, kind of my second in command, if you like. Science officer, which also takes in communications. So when I'm trying to learn new languages of races, we've got Commander Lucas Kaplinska. We have security officer Lieutenant Mark IV. They are an android. They are Mark IV. They are the fourth incarnation or fourth version of this particular robot that was built as a security officer. Chief of Medical, Ensign Wilfred Endar. And we've got the head of navigation, which in Star Trek terms would be the Con, Ensign Bobby Munoz, or Muno, however you want to pronounce that. Right, I was just about to say something else there, and I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. So I'll move on. I've got my ship, the HMS Lancaster. It's a Nova class. So yeah, some things are Star Trek themed, but that's exactly what I was going to say actually. Although I'm using Star Trek Adventures, because I don't know a lot about Star Trek, I'm not calling it Star Trek, because I don't want to have to deal with Star Trek lore. I don't want to be in a position where I'm telling a story, I'm playing the game, and then I have an Andorian do something, or a Klingon do something, or the Borg that does something, and I'm going to get comments, the Andorians would never do that. That's not in their DNA. That's not their culture. Or the Klingons would never say that. The Klingons do this, or the Klingons would do that, or the Klingons have never visited this planet, so it never happened like that. I don't want those. I want to start from scratch. I want to start with my own lore. Yes, it's kind of Star Trek themed, and there will be a lot of elements that are Star Trek based. I mean, the ship, for example, the class, there will be some things that are kind of Star Trek-y, but I'm very much trying to just sort of create my own lore. The name of my Captain John Paul Kingston. This is the picture I kind of did not draw. That is AI. AI is not something I really want to. It's not a route I want to go down. But for little things like this, I'm not going to pay an artist to do that. So sorry, I'm using AI for things like that. We do have the injuries and the misfortunes that my character might endure are based on the Ironsworn Starforged mechanics. Same with health, spirit, and supply. So some rules that we come across, some moves that we have to take, will ask me to roll on health, spirit, or supply. The majority of moves I use, I will be picking which stat I roll on. So in Ironsworn, for example, you might get a move, say gather information, for example. So I'm investigating something and I want to gather some information. It'll ask me to roll on wits. Well, I don't have wits, so I'm going to choose which stat I roll on, and it will probably, for something like gather information, I guess it would depend on the situation. But it'd probably be something like reason. If I'm trying to gather information from a person, am I trying to reason with that person? Am I using my presence to kind of intimidate them a little bit? Or am I in control of the situation? So I'll get to choose which stat I want to roll on. Interestingly, recently watched a video from The Bad Spot, which is a great Ironsworn YouTube channel. And he recently, with another Starforged YouTuber, came up with a bit of a system which is similar to this in a way, instead of the stats, but it tells you to use which stat you want to use. You choose which stat you want to use rather than being restricted to the one the move tells you. So it kind of coincided with me coming up with this. I didn't copy them, they didn't copy me. It just kind of happened. So yeah, I'll just take you through a little bit of the background of my character then. So this is, I rolled on everything from the Star Trek Adventures sheet rulebook. So this is all stuff I've rolled on. Some roles I weren't happy with, so I've adapted it. If they relied too much on Star Trek lore, or if it just didn't fit the story. So in my story, we are the first ship with a warp drive technology, and we are the first ship to go outside the solar system looking for new life, new planets, new civilizations. So it wouldn't have fit for my character to have learned an alien language or dealt with a plague on a distant planet, because it just wouldn't have fit. So we were born and raised on a busy Earth colony in the solar system. So I haven't decided where. Use your imagination. Probably Mars or another planet that we could feasibly build a colony on. The colony was regarded as cosmopolitan, full of different cultures. I was going to say races, and I don't mean that in alien races, because we don't know any other alien races yet. Parents were from a science and technology field, so because of that, I took on an early interest in science and technology, particularly space travel and other various sciences. My early aspirations were to create, so I took that. I interpreted that to be kind of an inventor. I wanted to invent things and create things and bring things into the world that didn't exist yet. So my character maybe is a little bit of an inventor, or has that kind of itch to want to kind of create new things. Education was in diplomacy. So as I got a little bit older, kind of wanted to maybe explore other fields, moved away a little bit from the sciences, and was trained in diplomacy. And career events, I rolled 2. I called out a superior. That was the role, and I decided to just make something up. I called out a superior for violation of safety regulations. So it was a life or death situation. It's like, you are going against regulations here. If you choose to do that, I will call you out. Probably was right to do so, because whatever that other person was going to do could have cost lives. We might delve into that as we play. We might delve a little bit more into the backstory. I don't know. And the other one I rolled was a transporter accident. So my character suffered a transporter accident. Now, I didn't want it to be anything too drastic. And again, without much Star Trek knowledge, I didn't quite know what to think. So I just thought, well, maybe there was an issue with the reconfiguration at the other end, and it's just left them with some kind of I don't want to say deformity, but they basically walk with a very pronounced limp now. Whether the transporter caused one leg to shorten over the other, I don't know. Again, use your imagination, but it just adds a little bit of depth to the character. Maybe that was a very scary moment. They didn't know whether. No one knew whether they were going to be put together at all. They were, luckily, but they do now have a pronounced limp. That could come into play later on if I'm doing anything athletic. Who knows? With the ship, I've decided to call it the HMS Lancaster. All kinds of names I could have chosen, but I've gone with Lancaster. Ship integrity, this is a Starforged thing, and so is the whether it becomes battered or cursed. Now, I'm not an expert on Starforged, and I haven't played for a long time, actually. If I remember rightly, when you get to 0 and then you get another hit, that's when you become battered and cursed. I think I spelt yacht there wrong, didn't I? So talents, again, I rolled on these. I have an improved impulse drive. So if and when I use a Starforged move that requires me to travel in the ship, I may give myself a little bit of an advantage. Maybe instead of ticking off 1 box, I'll tick off 2, because we have that improved impulse drive. Regenerative. We've got a better hull as well than most ships of this class, so it kind of regenerates. Again, I will probably have that come into play if we're asked to lose a ship integrity. I might, instead of knocking it down 1, might just knock it down half or something. I don't quite know how this is going to come into play yet, and this is where the whole making it up as I go along is going to come in. And the ship also has a captain's yacht, apparently. It has a captain's yacht. How that works in space, I don't know, but it's, use your imagination. I'm going to use mine. It's obviously some kind of ship that's attached to the Lancaster that just allows the captain and guests to, just detach from the main ship and cruise, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, again, use your imagination. Let me scroll down a little bit more so you can actually see what's going on. Quirks. I rolled on 3 of these. No, I didn't. I rolled on 2. I thought I rolled on 3. I might roll another one. I'll see. So 1 turbo lift in the ship. One turbo lift plays elevator music from the 20th century Earth. Now, this doesn't. It's nothing mechanical. It's nothing major. But it's just something that maybe we can add some kind of character development somewhere along the line, where it's just one particular elevator that always plays 20th century Earth elevator music. Maybe the other lifts don't play any music at all, and no one knows why this is. No one knows why this happens. And the other one I rolled, one of the secondary bridge stations has a control panel that blanks for a few seconds when shields are activated. That could be quite interesting, and that could cause complications or conflicts later on, maybe. We've upped shields and we're having to use a secondary bridge, and the screens have gone blank at a really critical moment. We'll see, maybe. Yeah, so I might roll another quirk just to give the ship a little bit more character. Okay, I think that's it for showing you the character sheet and everything. Again, I just want to make sure that you can sort of see everything. I will be rolling dice. This game, I'll be using the Starforged mechanic. So, for example, here I've rolled a 2, a 7, and a 5. So this 2, the D6, I would add, say, for example, on my character sheet, I might add the 4 for control. That would give me a 10. And I would have beaten both dice on that occasion, which would be a strong hit. What else have I got to show you? I've gone into the... I've opened, obviously, this is the Star Trek Captain's Log sheet, but I also have the Ironsworn. Did I say Starforged Captain's Log? I don't know what I said. Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log, and I also have the Ironsworn one open. This is actually the reference guide rather than the full rule book. This is basically all you need to play. The rulebook goes into a lot more detail. As far as rolling on tables and oracles is concerned, I'm going to try and mix it up a little bit with both. I'm going to use a little bit of Starforged and a little bit of Star Trek. I prefer the theme of Star Trek, but there's going to be some useful stuff in Starforged as well. But kicking off, I want to roll up a mission. Now, where do I remember? I might have to do a search here for mission. Oh, there's 457 entries for mission. Okay, let's forget that then. Is there anything in the contents page that's going to help me? I think it's under probability matrices. I think. Generating mission types. Here we go, 255. Right, so, and then I need to roll a mission type on 257. Okay, so mission type. I'm going to roll a d20 here, and let's see what we get. So let's roll a d20, if I can find the right page. And that is an 18, and 18 is tactical. So the first mission is a tactical mission. I'm not writing anything down yet, because if this doesn't fit the whole story of us being, the first ship out there, we don't even know if there's life out there yet. I'm going to have to change things up. So tactical, let's have a look at the tactical table then. And let's roll on something here. I just want to make sure you can see that. Another D20. And this one is a 12. So 12. Orbital bombardment. Okay. Not quite sure what that means, but I think I've got our first. I think I've got our first story, and this actually fits really well for a first contact. We're going to meet 2 races at the same time. We're going to initially come across a planet that we see there's something going on, and we see it's being bombarded. It's being bombarded with missiles, lasers, guns, whatever. And although, as far as the Star Trek Prime Detective would be concerned, we shouldn't interfere, we do. We want to know what's going on. We want to know why this planet is being attacked. Perhaps we just... That's what I'm going to go with. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time for me to think about this. But that's what we're going to go with. So that's the first mission then. So mission, tactical, orbital bombardment. Right, so witness a planet being bombarded with weaponry, and we want to investigate. I mean, first of all, we would investigate anyway, right? We've just found alien life. Of course we're going to investigate. We certainly didn't expect our first contact to be in the middle of a war, but we kind of feel that we can't ignore it. Would we? I don't know. Would humanity ignore that? Or would we think, oh my God, we have found intelligent life. They're no better than us. They're no better than humans. Look at them. They're warring. We have to make some form of contact. Or would we think, this is the first time we've come across alien life, but there's guns going off. Let's just get out of here. What would they do? I don't know. What would you do? I think my captain, and obviously if we just run off, there's no story. So my captain is going to want to think, hang on a minute. What's going on here? We thought the first time we met alien life, they would be better than us. They would be more intelligent than us. They would have learned lessons about war and conflict. Maybe we need to find out what's going on here. And yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of get where I'm going. If I just said no, we'd just run away, then there's no story. Sorry guys, end of the episode, end of the adventure. No, so we're going to go with that. We're going to, obviously try and just find out what's going on. Okay, I've now been recording for, blimey, a lot longer than I thought actually. So I'm going to leave it there for the moment. This is episode 0, session 0. We've got our first mission. The next episode, I'm going to kind of make a start. I'll figure out what kind of move we should do first. Do I do a travel move to get to this place, or because we already know the mission, it's the first move kind of working out what to do, making contact. Yeah, we'll see. Hope you're going to join me for this journey. Let me know what you think of what I'm doing. Am I just completely mad? Is there already a brilliant alternate version to Star Trek Adventures that I could play? Or am I kind of onto something here? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you will stick with me on this journey. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Goodbye.